Hello and thank you for downloading. My name's Steve Johnson, and this is the Inquests and Inquiries podcast. Welcome to this episode of Inquests and Inquiries. And following comments from listeners, this one will be looking at comparing three major rail accidents that occurred in the UK: Clapham Junction, Ladbroke Grove, and the Southall train accident. The podcasters, the artificial intelligence podcasters, were set a challenge here to look at what common safety issues occurred between the three of these incidents, and you'll hear from them in a moment. But in order to just make sure that you have a bit of background on this and to keep the theme of this series where we acknowledge that these lessons came at a very high cost of people dying and being injured, and therefore the importance of us actually making sure those lessons are embedded in our learning, I'm going to summarize each of the incidents. So Clapham Junction, 35 people died and nearly 500 injured. It was a collision in December 1998 near Clapham Junction station between a crowded commuter train and two other trains. The Ladbroke Grove incident was a head-on collision in 1999 in October at the Ladbroke Grove junction between a Thames Trains Turbo and a First Great Western high-speed train. That resulted in 31 fatalities, including both train drivers, and over 400 injuries. Then finally, the Southall accident was a collision on September 1997 at Southall between a Great Western train, high-speed train, and a freight train operated by the English, Welsh and Scottish Railway. In that, 7 people died and 139 were injured. Links to these inquiries will be available on the podcast page, so you can go into them in more detail yourself. And I now hand you over to our artificial intelligence podcasters to look at comparing these incidents.
Welcome back to the deep dive. You've really given us a fascinating challenge this time.
Oh, yeah.
To compare these three major UK rail accidents.
Okay.
Clapham Junction.
Yeah.
Back in 88.
Right.
Ladbroke Grove, that was in 99.
Mm-hmm.
And Southall in 97.
Okay, yeah.
And we're diving into, just a mountain of investigation reports and inquiry transcripts, really trying to see if we can pull out any common threads between these tragedies.
Like we're doing a forensic analysis of these accidents.
Yes.
Looking for the shared DNA that led to these events.
That's a great way to put it, actually.
Yeah.
That's what makes this deep dive so interesting. We're not just going to kind of rehash the details of each accident.
Right.
We're really searching for those underlying patterns, those systemic issues that might have played a role across all three cases.
Yeah, and by understanding those patterns, hopefully we can contribute to preventing similar tragedies from happening in the future.
Exactly. So, okay, let's jump in. One thing that just kind of leaped off the page at me from these reports was the issue of signal visibility and design.
Okay.
It really seemed to be a factor in all three accidents.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Signals are the language of the railway. They convey critical information to the drivers.
Right.
But if those signals are unclear, if they're poorly placed or just prone to malfunctions, they become a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with Clapham Junction.
Okay.
From what I could gather, a signal failed to turn red due to faulty wiring.
Oh, wow.
And this led to a train passing what they call a signal passed at danger, a SPAD.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a
big no-no.
Yeah, it's a serious offense in railway operations.
Absolutely, it is indeed.
And, the investigation into Clapham really uncovered something even more disturbing.
Oh.
They found a culture of just inadequate supervision and testing.
Oh, wow.
Within British Rail's Signal and Telecoms Department. And these technicians were just overworked. They were relying on overtime.
Yeah.
There was immense pressure to meet deadlines.
I see.
So it really sounds like corners were being cut and safety protocols weren't being followed as rigorously as they should have been.
Yeah, precisely.
Right.
You can't sacrifice safety for expediency.
Yeah.
But let's move on to a Ladbroke Grove.
Okay.
Now we see another layer of complexity with signal visibility.
Okay.
So signal SN109 was just notoriously difficult to see.
Wow.
It was obscured by a bridge and overhead lines.
It's almost like it was hidden in plain sight.
Yeah.
Wow. I was also kind of struck by the fact that this signal had this, a rather unusual, like, reverse L shape.
They're reverse L.
Did that contribute at all to the accident?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
The inquiry found that this unusual configuration may have contributed to the driver misinterpreting the signal, especially because he was pretty inexperienced on that particular route.
And you know what makes this even more concerning is that there were
multiple
previous signals at danger at this exact location.
Yeah, this exact same location, yeah.
So there was this history of confusion and near misses with the signal.
Yeah.
That's a red flag, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Something needs to change.
It speaks to the importance of not just reacting to accidents,
but
proactively identifying and addressing potential hazards before they escalate.
Yes. Now, how does Southall fit into this pattern of signal visibility issues?
Well, at Southall, the driver missed 2 signals and passed a third at danger.
Right.
But there was a lot of debate over whether those signals were adequately visible and correctly aligned.
Okay.
There were questions about sight lines, signal placement, and even, potential for environmental factors.
Oh, interesting.
Like sunlight affecting visibility.
So it really sounds like in all 3 accidents, we're seeing this recurring theme of signals either being faulty, poorly designed, or just placed in a way that made them really difficult for drivers to see.
And interpret correctly.
Yeah,
and this highlights a key takeaway for our listeners today.
What's that?
Clear and unambiguous signal design is just absolutely essential for railway safety.
Good.
Signals must be idiot-proof.
Yeah.
You have to minimize the chance of human error.
Right.
Especially when you consider the speed and complexity of train operations.
Oh, absolutely.
Even a momentary lapse in concentration or a slight misinterpretation can have just catastrophic consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is fascinating, like how these seemingly small details, like where a signal is placed or the design, can have this massive impact on safety.
It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate how much thought and engineering goes into creating something as complex as a railway. But speaking of complexity, another common thread I noticed in these reports was this interplay between human error and what they call systemic failures.
Right.
It's like these accidents weren't just caused by one person's mistake, but by a series of weaknesses in the system itself.
Yeah, that's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
It's rarely just a case of blaming an individual.
Right.
We need to look at the context in which those errors happen.
Right.
What systemic factors might have contributed to those mistakes.
Right. And for instance, at Clapham Junction, we saw how that intense pressure to meet deadlines and the reliance on overtime might have led to those crucial wiring errors.
Yeah.
It's almost like the system itself was setting people up to fail.
That's a powerful way to put it.
And then if we look at Ladbroke Grove, the driver's misreading of that poorly sighted signal, it was compounded by the fact that his training on that particular layout and signal type was deemed inadequate. So it wasn't just that he wasn't paying attention. There were gaps in his training that might have contributed.
It wasn't just an isolated incident either.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The inquiry into Ladbroke Grove actually concluded that the overall safety culture at Thames Trains, the company involved, was, quote, slack.
Wow.
Yeah, they weren't doing enough to prepare their drivers for the complexities of that route.
And what about Southall? Did we see a similar pattern of human error combined with those systemic issues?
Yes, absolutely. So the driver's failure to react to those signals, that was a major factor, of course.
Yeah.
But there were also issues with communication breakdowns.
Right.
Ambiguous rules regarding the automatic warning system, the AWS.
Oh, right.
It's a crucial safety feature. It alerts drivers to potential hazards.
Right.
And just a general lack of robust risk assessment procedures.
Okay, so in all 3 cases, we see this kind of interplay between those human actions and those systemic vulnerabilities. It's like these accidents were just waiting to happen.
It's true.
Given the combination of individual errors and those cracks in the system.
It is a sobering thought.
Yeah, very much so.
It shows how individual actions happen within a larger system.
Right.
And even seemingly small errors can cascade into disaster if the system itself is flawed.
Right.
And that brings us to another really crucial point.
Okay.
Communication.
Okay.
Breakdowns in communication seem to have played a significant role in all 3 of these accidents.
Yeah, it's almost like this domino effect.
Right.
One communication breakdown leads to another.
Yeah.
And then things spiral out of control.
Yeah, that's a very apt analogous.
At Clapham Junction.
Yeah.
They found that delays in communication after that initial crash actually hampered the emergency response efforts.
Yeah. Imagine the chaos and confusion in those first few moments.
It's hard to even think about.
Yeah.
Was communication an issue at Ladbroke Grove as well?
Yes, but in a different way.
Oh, okay.
So the signalers at Ladbroke Grove's control center,
Right.
they had very limited options for responding to that signal past it danger. It's like they were trying to manage this, this rapidly unfolding emergency with one hand tied behind their backs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, Southall also had, if I recall, some communication challenges.
Indeed.
Right.
Remember that faulty AWS we were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, a communication breakdown meant that it wasn't repaired before the train even left the station.
Oh, wow.
And then, to make matters worse, the driver tried to report the fault.
Right.
But that was either lost or overlooked.
Wow.
It's a tragic example of how even seemingly minor communication errors can have these devastating consequences.
Yeah, we're seeing this pattern of information not getting to where it needs to be when it needs to be there.
In all three cases, these investigations highlighted communication failures as contributing factors.
Wow.
This is a lesson that goes way beyond the railway industry.
I bet.
Think about healthcare, aviation, or even managing a large team at work.
Right.
Clear, timely, and accurate communication is just so essential for safety and effectiveness in any complex system.
It makes you realize just how crucial these everyday interactions are.
Right.
Exchanging this information.
Yeah.
We often take it for granted.
We do.
But it can really be the difference between a smooth operation and a potential disaster.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And it leads us to probably the most crucial common thread.
Okay, what's that?
Safety culture and regulation.
Yeah, this is the big picture.
Precisely.
Right.
How do we create a culture that really puts safety first?
Above all else.
Yeah. Following each one of these accidents, there were all these recommendations for improvements in safety culture, regulations, and oversight.
Right.
It was a real wake-up call.
For the whole industry.
For the whole industry, yeah.
Let's start with Clapham Junction.
Okay.
What were some of the big changes that came out of that tragedy?
Well, the Clapham Junction report said we need a stronger safety culture within British Rail.
Okay.
It called for more attention to quality management, stricter adherence to standards, and a shift from reactive to proactive safety measures.
Oh, okay, I see.
So it was about creating a culture where safety is everyone's responsibility.
Right, not just an afterthought.
Exactly.
And how did Ladbroke Grove kind of build on those recommendations?
Well, the Ladbroke Grove inquiry was very critical of Railtrack.
Okay.
The company in charge of rail infrastructure.
Right.
They were found to be complacent.
Oh.
They didn't adequately address those known signal visibility issues.
Oh, wow.
Even though there were all these previous signals passed at danger.
So it's about learning from those near misses, right?
Exactly.
And taking steps to prevent them from becoming major incidents.
Yes, and Southall just further reinforce that. The importance of proactive risk assessment.
Right.
They pointed out the lack of a risk assessment for operating trains with the AWS system isolated.
Right.
It highlighted the need to anticipate potential hazards and develop procedures to mitigate those risks.
It sounds like each accident, as tragic as it was, really pushed the industry toward a more robust and systemic approach to safety.
Yes. That's the silver lining, if you will.
Right.
Sometimes it takes a tragedy to force an industry or even society to confront its shortcomings and make changes.
It's a sobering reminder that safety is an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
We can't just, rest on our laurels.
No, we can't get complacent.
Even when things seem to be running smoothly.
Even when things seem to be going well.
We have to constantly evaluate and improve.
Exactly. Identify vulnerabilities.
Right.
Be willing to adapt and learn from mistakes.
And to our listener, we leave you with this.
Okay. Imagine you were tasked with designing a truly fail-safe railway.
Okay.
What would you prioritize?
Right.
How would you use what we've learned today to create a system that is as resilient and safe as possible?
It's a challenge we're thinking about.
It is.
And it reminds us that safety isn't just about rules and regulations.
No, it's not.
It's a mindset.
It's a mindset.
A commitment to protecting lives and preventing harm.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been great.
It's through these kinds of discussions that we can hope to build a safer future.
For everyone.
For everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Inquests and Inquiries podcast. Remember, you can find more information on the website, inquestsandinquiries.com, or on the YouTube channel as well. Link in the notes.